Alright guys, welcome back to another Harry Potter book review. My name is James.
Ninetailedbrush.
And today we are going to be talking about Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. So, we're in a new setup. Welcome to the new setup. Welcome to Ninetailedbrush's new house.
Yep.
Hopefully it works out. I'm going to be saying this for the next 2 weeks that we're trying to figure out technical stuff, so it's a little echoey or whatever. It's because we're figuring stuff out. Okay, Half-Blood Prince. This book was I don't know why it felt longer than people were saying Order of the Phoenix, I think, is the longest book. But this book felt, because that was 37 chapters, and this was only 30, but this felt dense.
Well, there
was a lot going on. So I'm gonna be doing my best to remember. But kind of overall review of the book. What did you think? And then the kind of obligatory comparison to the movie. What are your thoughts?
I liked this book better than the movies.
Yeah,
for me personally.
I agree.
I think there was a lot. I think once again it is that clarity sort of argument that I always go with. That in the movie there were a lot of things that I wasn't catching on to.
Okay.
Right, and one of the things was the well, I don't know if I should get into details. Let's just say it
No, you can get into a little bit of detail.
Okay, so the whole Horcrux thing, and when Dumbledore went there and stuff, Dumbledore and Harry went to the place and stuff. I was still very kind of confused.
Yeah.
So what was there multiple Horcruxes or something? And I didn't even know what a Horcrux really was. Because when they even if they
cut
explained
out some of Harry's lessons, they did, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what kind of screwed. So it wasn't as bad as Prisoner of Azkaban to me as far as deficit.
No.
I actually feel if they had just adjusted a few things, because I agree with you, the book was a little bit better than the movie, but I think if they had adjusted a few things, it would have
evened it out or something.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah, I mean,
because I agree, the Horcruxes were really unclear.
Yeah, I mean, in the book, it could also be that we already know about Horcruxes, and so it's solidifying it. So
That's
maybe
true.
It would be more
because they don't spend a ton of time on them, frankly.
Yeah, but I feel especially with the reading medium, and I've said this before, is you're just able to get things, in a slower sort of pace, right?
Yeah.
Because you're going through people's thoughts. One thing was the what's the good luck.
The liquid luck?
Yeah. One of the things was they would explain kind of how Harry was how he was thinking and okay, it's running out now, and I can feel it, it's working now, and now you got to use it. Whereas in the movie, it can't really they don't narrate his
that's impossible,
thoughts, right?
It's impossible to do that.
Yeah, and that's why as a book you're able to get okay, now it's cutting off. Now he's or here's the most important time he needs to utilize this, right?
Yeah.
And that's why he's doing that. Whereas in the movie it might be a facial expression or something.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know, some sort of effect, but we didn't even really get that in the movie. So it does make things clear, even just in general, to all the stuff.
Yeah.
Horcruxes, the potion, everything.
I pretty much agree generally with your thoughts on the movie as a whole. I want to get into, I guess let's just get into differences, and then we'll talk a little bit about characters and then some themes. One of the biggest things, am I just forgetting Dumbledore's funeral? Because Dumbledore's funeral was way cooler in the book. They did this whole thing with the centaurs, shooting their arrows, and his whole body, lit up in flames and turned into this tomb. It was this super cool, reverent... And I remember they did the shoot their wands up in the sky thingy, but they didn't do a funeral, did they? Am I totally blanking on that, fans? I don't think they did. And if they did, it clearly wasn't as good as the book, because I don't remember it.
Yeah, I don't quite remember if they did or not. They might have done something really short, but I might be mixing it up with a different movie.
No, because I remember they they shot.
Yeah, I remember the wand.
That's all I remember, and I feel that was a huge moment that could have been this really impactful moment that should have been in the movie, and it wasn't.
Yeah, I feel they did, regardless of whether it was in the movie or not. They spent a lot more time on Dumbledore's really
Yes,
and so
I really
it
liked
felt
that.
A huge.
I like that whole scene a lot better.
Yeah, you felt it felt such a huge impact, right?
I just the way they did that entire scene, and I remember people complained a little bit about the apparition, I totally understood that, where they were like, oh, you have to apparate outside of. But one thing that it did, my bigger problem with that scene, which I guess would have been changed with the apparition, was the way they found out about the Death Eaters. Like, the way they did it in the book, where he sees the dark mark far away, and they're
that
like,
was
oh
cool
my gosh,
wait.
we have to run. Like, the way they did that, and even the way Rowling wrote it. Rolling? I'm forgetting. Rowling wrote it.
Rowling.
Drink every time I mispronounce her name. The way she wrote it, saying like, oh, they like looked up and then it was the dark mark, and I was like, what? Like, and I knew stuff was going down. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. What the heck? And so I was so annoyed that they didn't have that. And then just the whole explanation of Dumbledore stupefying him. It's like just really simple like things that I feel like could have been really easily fixed. Like if they had just had him say it out loud as opposed to it being in his head in the movie and was like, stupefy, right when he puts the cloak on and then he's stuck. Perfect. Done. Yes. Then you don't have to explain it, and then it makes the whole thing with Harry not being able to move even more tense. Because then Harry was sitting there, and you're kind of like, dude, you've been doing stuff this whole series. Why don't you just get off your butt?
Yeah, there's no way you would just hide here, right?
Yeah, it was weird. And then the whole Snape thing telling him to hide, I didn't like how they did that in the movie. Because like Snape tells him to hide or something, I think.
I don't remember that at all.
Or he sees Snape. I don't remember. I think the whole ending...
Oh, yeah, you might be right.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I remember.
The whole ending, I feel like, was really botched.
Yeah, I mean...
Because it was so epic. Like, I had no idea... Like, there was a siege on Hogwarts, and in the movie, it's like, they messed with the napkins a little bit, and then they killed Dumbledore, and then they left.
Okay, yeah, definitely the whole war thing.
Yes.
Right? That was, a thing that I feel like should have totally been in the movie.
And I don't know why, because it's just more action. Like, every Hollywood filmmaker and producer should drool at the thought of more action.
Yeah. But, I mean, like, yeah, I totally agree that the ending in this book felt a lot more, like,
epic.
Tense, a lot more, like, an actual, like, huge event.
Wizard battle. Yeah, like, it rivals... Like, it's like the comparison, I'm going to be nerdy and talk about Lord of the Rings. It's like Helm's Deep versus the Battle of Pelennor Fields. Like, like they're both huge epic battles, whereas the movies, it was kind of like, oh, they had another skirmish.
Yeah.
And Dumbledore got assassinated, and then the epic battle. And that's a huge difference.
I mean, it totally didn't feel like, I mean, in the movies, if you, like, compare them, like, Order of the Phoenix fight at the end, like, that felt like an actual battle.
Yeah.
Whereas in the movie for, the Half-Blood Prince, it did feel like a little like, okay, we got a little scuffle going. They killed Dumbledore, but like there wasn't that any like huge thing happening afterwards, at least from what I can remember.
Yeah, and to me at least, it seems minuscule, but I actually think it's important because narratively, then it's so much less impactful. Like to me, this is a big moment reading the book. And I know this sounds like really nitpicky, but this is a huge moment. Like, Hogwarts has been like violated for lack of a better term. And it feels like this very like oh my gosh, like Hogwarts was attacked, not just like people broke into Hogwarts. And to me, I think going into Deathly Hallows, my mindset having read the book is completely different than my mindset having watched the movie.
Yeah, I think it definitely changes.
And that's a big deal.
I have. Yeah.
Because it feels like, okay, this was a full-on wartime attack.
Yeah.
Whereas it doesn't feel like that in the movie. So that was kind of frustrating.
Well, now that, they did have the second attack on, Hogwarts later on in Deathly Hallows.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to feel like the second,
And then it's cool to see how Hogwarts responds being prepared. Yeah. Like, it's just cool. So, that, I mean, honestly, that was my biggest gripe. Like, I was okay with... It was cool for me seeing the backstory for Voldemort and a few things like that. Yeah. But I was kind of okay with most of that not being... I understand how they didn't start with the Prime Minister, even though I really liked that opening. I get it. I get just for time how movies have to do things. Honestly, my biggest gripe was the end, where I was like, this ending was so epic in the book, and it just so was not as epic in the movie.
Yeah. I agree. Like, I did like the Tom Riddle stuff as well. Like, that's one of the things that I think... even though I would have liked it in the movies, like, you can't have a movie be so... It just can't be a literal one-to-one adaptation. It would be way too long, And, but I will still give points to the book, even if you can't include it in the movies. I still give points to the book because...
of course.
I overall just enjoy it better, right?
Yeah, which is why I think it's a good segue. Like, what did you think of the Tom Riddle character? To talk more about characters this book, and yes, we will talk about Snape. What did you think about Tom Riddle?
Well, I mean, we got a little bit of him in the movies, right? But I didn't get that whole sense of just how, like, how should I say, like, kind of, I don't want to say evil, but like
almost like sociopathic. And
yeah,
I know it's
like
really,
depraved
right?
or something.
Yeah,
right. He feels like it wasn't like I feel like in the movies I always thought like Tom Riddle was like a normal, like high schooler who probably went through some bad stuff, and he was he was troubled,
and then he lost his nose and just went crazy.
yeah, learned some sort of dark magic stuff and just went insane or something like that.
Yeah.
Where here I feel like no, this is Voldemort through and through already.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Tom Riddle is basically Voldemort. And he just does feel like there wasn't a complete change. He completely feels like how he is in the current times,
Yeah.
just younger and less experienced.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I like the character. I like the dynamic. I really like the hints. I like this really highly manipulative character, kind of, where he's like playing to everybody and he's like pretending he's like getting on the teacher's good side and all these different kinds of things.
Yeah.
That's really interesting, and I think finally kind of brings us back to our Harry and Voldemort comparison, which I guess we could talk about a little more when we get into themes. But I feel like now that we've seen young, Voldemort, when did we make that comparison? Way back in Chamber of Secrets. But I feel like now we're kind of reconnecting with that theme a little bit.
Yeah.
So I liked his character. I thought it was interesting. It wasn't a ton. Like I don't know. Maybe I just got overhyped by comments. A lot of people hyped it up as like, there's all this stuff. It wasn't a lot of information. It was cool. I liked kind of some of the explanation behind the ring and his character, but it wasn't like an insane amount of like, oh my gosh, I didn't know any of this stuff.
I mean, it was really cool.
I thought that
I really did enjoy it, right? Like, especially his interactions when he was younger with Dumbledore. Like, to me,
I liked that a lot.
It's really cool to see that, right? Because all we get of Voldemort is like he's like this evil wizard and he's doing evil stuff, and Dumbledore's the
good wizard,
the foil to him, right? The counterpart, and so like, it's cool to see him where he's not yet considered this evil wizard, right? And he's still being, I feel like, how should I say, like, being judged by Dumbledore as to what his, motives are, what his character is, right?
Yeah.
And so I enjoy seeing that, right?
I agree.
How you can also see, it also shows, like, not just Voldemort's side, but also Dumbledore's, like, how he kind of is looking out for other people and realizing that, hey, Voldemort, even though he wants this teaching job, he doesn't seem like he is there to help people, right? He's not.
Yeah.
He still lacks that love, right?
Yeah.
And that love, you need that in order to truly, if you truly want to be a good teacher, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, that we got teachers nowadays that,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
No, but Voldemort, I'm saying.
Well, he never taught, right?
Yeah, no, but he wanted to.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so, he knows that, like, Voldemort just, he's not there to actually, help the kids out, you know?
Yeah.
And even though he asked twice, I think he asked, like,
that
he wanted to, teach the kids. It's like, no, I don't think he is.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, the biggest thing that shocked me is I thought they were going to spend way more time with his... Like, I thought he was going to go and live with his dad for a while, and I was so surprised how he found out about them and was like, oh, he's not a wizard? He abandoned me? And then he just, like, went and killed them. And because I didn't expect it, because, like, my movie entertainment brain was like, oh, there's no way he's going to spend a bunch of time, especially because people had said there was, like, a big backstory. I was like, oh, he'll spend a few years, and then he'll lose it. I was also basing it off of Harry Potter senior year.
So I exactly was doing the same thing. Because I totally thought it was going to be this dramatic thing of like, my father isn't
so, like, I thought he was going to get triggered or something. Not by Snickers, obviously, but like by something.
No, yeah.
But he wasn't, and it like really struck me because it was like super ruthless, and I was like, oh. And I don't know why, it particularly did, and that was like a really cool moment reading it because I was like, wow, they're dead. All right, Voldemort. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's funny. It's funny that how that first impression always gets you, right?
Yes.
Because, like, for some reason, that like sticks in your brain, that whole like Harry Potter sequel thing or whatever, and you think like, okay, it's going to be similar or something.
Yeah.
But no, it's like, oh wait, guys, remember Voldemort, the character? No, he's not like a comedy type of character, right? He's actually evil.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
What did you think of Dumbledore's character?
I mean, for one, like, I really enjoyed that.
I think he was my favorite. Or this book, sorry. I think he was my favorite, this book.
Well, I mean, we got way more of him.
Yeah,
like, we got a ton of him and Harry, right?
Yes.
I mean, that was the one cool thing that I really enjoyed about this entire book was that the previous book, we had that whole thing of, like, you know, Dumbledore not wanting to involve Harry in anything and Harry feeling really betrayed and then them like basically cutting each other off and not, you know, interacting whatsoever. And here I'm glad that like we followed through with that whole, you know, Dumbledore realizing his mistake and now he is trying to communicate better with Harry, right?
I still feel like Harry doesn't want to communicate with him.
Yeah,
so we got this weird disconnect where he still doesn't trust Voldemort. Or
not Voldemort, Snape.
Snape. No, not Snape.
Freaking Dumbledore.
Dumbledore. He doesn't trust Dumbledore because Dumbledore is vouching for Snape, right? Like obviously Snape is a little bit sus. I understand that Harry is sus of Snape, but the biggest thing, and you see everybody else, especially with Lupin, I thought it was a really powerful moment where he was kind of like, "Well, Dumbledore says he's good. I trust Dumbledore," and I was like, "Wow." And that's that. Like, no.
Yeah.
And same with, like, I really don't want to live with the werewolves. This is a horrible thing, but Dumbledore told me. I trust Dumbledore. Done. And I think, you know, obviously as the story continues, the story will continue. But I want to continue the Dumbledore debate where people are like, hey, he's really manipulative and he doesn't tell people things. I think that part of that is not evil. And I think actually a lot of it, and the reason it's written that way, is a testament to how much people trust Dumbledore.
Yeah.
Where Dumbledore is looking out for the bigger picture. And because for probably loads of unspoken reasons and stories that we never see, he's gained these people's trust, like Lupin, for example. Like your prime example, he's gained Lupin's trust. And even when Lupin showed up in the Goblet of Fire, right? Wasn't that Lupin? No, sorry, Prisoner of Azkaban. Even when he showed up in Prisoner of Azkaban, he talks about how he felt bad about not telling Dumbledore and breaking that trust. So, like, clearly that's a really important thing with Dumbledore. And I feel like the reason he doesn't tell people things is because he doesn't know yet, or he's trying to figure out these plans, or it's better that they don't know. That happens all the time in wartime.
Yes.
I don't think generals are evil because of that. And you can say, like, well, Dumbledore's not a general, but let's face it, he is.
He basically is at
basically
this point.
The nominated leader of the Order of the Phoenix, even if not officially. It's like everybody trusts Dumbledore more than anyone else, and it's not like he's refusing to tell them information when they're asking for it. They are okay with not getting information because they trust him. That's a huge difference.
Yes, and especially like the type of character like Lupin, right? Mm-hmm. Because he is of such good character, and we know it.
He's the best character in all the books, frankly.
Because we know it, he is definitely one of the best characters. For him to trust Dumbledore with such like unwavering, loyalty, speaks to Dumbledore's character himself.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Because Lupin, okay, it is partially like still like a teen kid book, and we need that heroic actions out of the younger adults or the kids, right?
Yeah.
And so at times the adults may not be as
responsible as they probably should be in real life.
To be.
Yeah.
Lupin still is, relatively speaking to the entire story, one of the best.
Dude, even in real life, he's better than most parents.
That's true. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to call people out.
But like because he is that. Right? He's like an anchor point or like a standard that we can set. Mm-hmm. And because he trusts Dumbledore so much, we like that already speaks for Dumbledore. We can't you can't just go straight for Dumbledore and say, oh no, Lupin just doesn't matter because,
Which is why I think Harry is a really fascinating character at this point, because I think the more I read, the more I think that he, like, Sirius was almost like an older brother to him, and in the way that sometimes that shouldn't be necessarily who you're putting your like be all end all trust in.
Yeah.
He put that in Sirius, and I feel like instead of somebody like Lupin or instead of somebody like Dumbledore, and so then the reason you see him like I think that really plays into his like hate for Snape, where he's just like, well, Sirius hated Snape and I don't like Snape, and we both related on that, so there is no way I'm ever going to trust Snape, whether Dumbledore or Lupin or any of these people who probably have warranted a little more trust than Sirius, even in the actions that Harry has seen them do, no matter what they say.
Yeah.
Because he had that kind of emotional connection to Sirius, and I feel like also he and Sirius were really similar. Like I feel like they had
they
similar
100%
temper
really
and a similar kind of heroic side to them.
And they had been through similar situations, like how Sirius had a poor childhood, and Harry kind of relates to that because of his home life, and they were both being kind of restricted, I feel like, right?
Yeah.
And so they were always constantly connecting, and so because of that, Harry looked at him as either a parent, an older brother, or just someone who's very similar, and his sort of thought process or ideas kind of like transferred over to Harry, right?
Yeah.
Because he looked at him as someone who was like him.
Yeah.
Right? And because of that, we do have his, I feel like it feels like an over the top conviction that Snape has to be evil.
Yeah.
Because there are so many times like before that Snape had done, like, I think Snape has done one of the most things to like help Harry, honestly. Even compared to like Dumbledore and stuff.
And the weird thing too, I'm sure, that makes it more frustrating from our point of view is that we know he isn't. And so then you just see Harry like as opposed to being along for the ride and being like, oh, he actually is, because I'm sure the literary effect of him killing Dumbledore and then everybody, including all of the Order, being like, I guess he is evil. Like, I'm sure, I mean, you as book readers probably were like I would have been like, oh my gosh, my world is shattered. Whereas me, I'm just like, okay, guys, get over it. Like,
that's true.
Wait till the next book. So that, I'm sure, plays into it a bunch as well. But something, to continue the Snape argument, somebody was saying that, like, a lot of the book is told from Harry Potter's point of view, which is interesting. I actually don't think that changes a lot, to be honest. I don't know what you think.
It might, because, I mean, I know a show that do that.
The actions, he still does things that are a little bit like, whoa, okay, like making fun of Hermione and stuff like that. Whether
that is true.
Like the extra little, like, he sneered, didn't exist. He still did that.
That is
and
true.
You're like, okay, right? So it doesn't change a lot of his actions that people...
No, yeah, he does do some whack stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
And so, like, unless, like, Harry is completely delusional and he didn't do any of that, then, yeah.
But something that I think is really interesting that I was thinking about, and I know this is going to cause trouble in the comments, but let's go.
I don't care.
Is, I think, what he did in this book, in hindsight of his sacrifice, is actually, like, uber heroic. Because, hear me out, okay? Because he knows that Harry is going to think he's evil, and more than likely all of the teachers that he taught with and all these different kind of things. And, like, look, he's an awkward, weird dude. I've had vague experiences with people I'm sure, but it doesn't mean he like hated everybody at Hogwarts. I doubt that. I'm sure he had, at least on some level, connections with the staff and different things like that, even if he's kind of like a weird dude and maybe was grumpy or couldn't be like, oh, let's go get a beer together, McGonagall. Like, he wasn't that guy, but I'm sure he still like felt a connection to his reputation and to the school and to some of the teachers and different things like that. He gave up all of that to follow Dumbledore, and he gave that up for possibly permanently, like understanding how reputations go. They always say like it's easy to, you can ruin a reputation in a second or whatever, but it takes years to build up a good. Yeah. There's some saying, I can't remember the exact wording of it, but I think that is relevant to this, where it's like he is giving up all of that, and he's probably going to get arrested by the ministry. Like, there's all these different things that he is signing up for to be a part of this plan and help it play out as it should.
Oh yeah,
and I think that's a huge sacrifice.
Yeah, whether you like Snape or not, that is undoubtedly a heroic sacrifice.
That's like not just doing stuff for the good guys. That's like an actual sacrifice.
Oh, it is.
Before he's even given his life.
Especially since we've seen him, right? How he was kind of, he overheard about right when Professor Trelawney and all that, and Harry got all mad because he had that hand in his parents' death.
Yeah.
Right? He had to, I mean, everyone knew that he worked with the Death Eaters.
Yeah.
You know, before, and well, not everyone, I don't think, but
a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But because of that, he had to, you know, work his way up and clear his name, basically.
Yeah.
Right? And so the fact that people know that he was part of the Death Eaters before, and that he's going to, you know, perform an action that will basically condemn him as a Death Eater forever now.
In the eyes of the public, yeah. Even if he ended up surviving. Just
but I mean, in the eyes of the public, yes.
And...
Like, I mean, everyone, like, thinks about their...
Yeah.
No, but everyone thinks about their, like, position, their kind of, like, you know, how other people look at them. I mean, it's very rare to find someone who just completely does not care about what anyone else thinks, right? And just does whatever they want. That's very rare, right? You're going to find people that, you know, don't want to do certain things in public, right?
Yeah.
Everyone does that. And for him to give up his place in, you know, the public eye, not even just as an awkward person, but to be, like, looked at as an evil person, right? For him to do that, not for himself, but for something greater than him, is heroic. Even if he was, like, let's just say he was a terrible person before. Yeah. That action alone proves that he has some sort of worth.
Well, that's what I was going to say, too. Like, so, you know, obviously the point can be made, like, oh, whoop-de-doo, he said he still loves Lily, whatever, it's a weird obsession, and that's why he turns good, and that's not a good reason. And it's like, yeah, that's a fair point, but to me, at least the biggest judge, and whenever anybody says they're not going to do this again, or whatever, you know, any sort of situation, even in my actual life that you judge people on, it's like, okay, you can say you're not going to do this again, however you want. You can say it really prettily, or you can say it really sloppily. In the end, that doesn't matter. In the end, it matters whether you do this again or not, right? And I think that kind of concept applied to Snape makes what he did super powerful, where it's like, yes, he was a Death Eater. He was into the dark arts. He did horrible things to Lily. He called her horrible names, all these different kind of things. And maybe it's not the most deep, amazing reason, but heck, dude, I've done, like, lots of humans do that. That's why I think he's actually a really good character. They'll do, like, insanely heroic things for kind of dumb reasons. And I also think that you wouldn't do the heroic thing if there wasn't a deeper reason. Even though, like, the most apparent reason may be like, oh, he still really, really loves Lily. I think, obviously, if it was just a super shallow reason, he wouldn't do this, which is why I think now, I guess, bringing it back, like, an action like this is really important, because it's not him just saying, it's not him just agreeing, it is him actively sacrificing his reputation and making huge moves and killing Dumbledore, which I'm sure honestly affected him. Probably less than the other staff members, probably a little bit less emotionally, but that's still a huge deal. Can you imagine killing anyone? I was going to say imagine killing your boss, but we've all imagined that. But, like, you know what I mean? Like a mentor or somebody who's given you that second chance, which Dumbledore has given him. And he did all of that because he realized it was right, and he did it realizing that the other people would hate him. And that's heroic, dude. I don't care what you say. That's heroic. Yeah. And those actions speak louder than any words, in my opinion.
I also think that because I feel like love is a big theme, like, especially in this book, that difference between having love and not having it, I think that people kind of label his, like, love for Lily as obsession too quickly.
Yeah, like, they kind of give it a... Well, also, they don't give it a chance to, like they give none of these people... And it's a little frustrating to me, where it's like, you don't give any of these people an opportunity for change. Like, people change, especially from high school, a ton. Okay, it's 2 years from high school, and I'm a completely different human being than I was in high school. Snape's like, what, like 10 years? Right? 10, 15, depending on what book you're in. 15 years from high school? That's a huge difference, dude. Like, yeah, it probably was a dumb crush, and he was like, wow, Lily's really hot. Probably was that to begin with. But the fact that it's lasted that long, to me, shows that it's more than something.
Yeah.
And it's not just this creepy, weird stalker thing. I don't think. Like, people paint it as that. I really don't think it's that, because it's so selfless.
No, yeah. Like, I can never understand that sort of listing something like that as, like, stalkerish. I mean, like, if you love a certain person, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to be thinking about them all the time. And just because you can, you know... Like, let's say you get with the person, right? then it ends up being not stalkerish or something.
Well, yeah, right. It's weird because also like what do you like to me like true love, right, is wanting the good of another over the good of yourself.
Yes.
And I feel like he demonstrates that. I mean, later on, but he's wanting the good of another's offspring.
Yes.
Because he knows that she loved him more than himself. How is that not true love? Like, obviously, James was probably more compatible. He was probably a little bit better of a person. I'm not saying that, like, you know, whatever. I'm glad that James did his thing. But it doesn't mean that, like, just because Snape's Patronus was the same as Lily's and James's was a little bit different than Lily's and that seemed perfectly compatible, it doesn't mean that doesn't automatically make, like, Snape a total stalker.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Like, dude, Tonks's Patronus was freaking Lupin.
Yes.
It's like different people are more attached, and it's like his actions are some of the deepest acts of love that kicks any rom-com or any other romantic story between the two romantic leads butt. Like,
it does.
Most romantic leads don't do that for their love.
Yeah, most of the time, like, love stories are very on the surface, you know? I feel like Snape's love is one of the best sort of representations of, like, true love.
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
It's the one time you don't actually get, you know, that reciprocation.
Yeah.
And yet you still, you know, do selfless actions in order to kind of prove to people or prove to yourself that you still love that person.
Yeah.
Right? And I think it's a big thing because we constantly have this sort of recurring theme of like love all the time. Like,
yeah.
You know, Harry, you got this love that makes you a different sort of wizard, right?
Yeah.
And Voldemort, without love, he cannot like, you know, comprehend it, and so that is one of his like weaknesses.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I feel like because Snape still has that love, right? He's able to push himself to do things that other people would not.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. On the topic of love, I do have to take back really quick before we talk about a few themes.
Yeah.
I totally take back what I was trashing about it being super dumb and dramatic with the romances, because I actually think that totally paid off with Ginny and Harry and their romance, because their romance was so not that and it was so real. And I think that in context, I loved that. Like the whole dynamic of them at the end and just the little subtle things where Ginny would like help him out or like come up next to him, where it wasn't dumb like, Ginny, let's go make out, Dumbledore's dead. Like it was these like subtle like actually cares for him. And even the fact that he like was able to have this like super mature conversation and be like, look, I don't want you to get hurt. And her to understand just everything about that, I thought was so well done. I am like such a huge fan. I'm sorry, anybody who said Harry should have gotten together with anybody else, get out of here, get wrecked. Okay?
I mean, yeah,
because that was such a cool moment. Like their moments at the end, and they did it in so little time with just these little subtle things. Like it was one of my favorite additions to the book, and I was like, that was just so well done. It added so much to her character. And then it was such a cool contrast to all the like cheesy, dumb high school relationships that had been happening on the whole first half of the book.
Like, I'm not gonna lie, I still don't enjoy those ones, but I'm glad we got through them for the payoff, right?
Yeah.
And, like, honestly, this book is, like, the first time I actually, in any of the Harry Potter series, movies, whatever, was fairly, like, affected and intrigued by the romance.
Yeah, between, first of all, Lupin and Tonks.
Yes, Lupin
and
Tonks.
Ginny and Harry.
And Bill and
yes,
Fleur.
Yes.
Dude, like, all those, like, I started to be like, hey, like this is
these
cool.
are dope. I'm
this is actually
these
cool.
Couples. Yeah.
Yes.
And the little like side arc with Fleur and her like proving that like even though she is like maybe a little more ditzy or whatever word you would have for it, and like Mrs. Weasley doesn't connect with that. Like the fact that she still is willing to love Bill even after he's like totally mangled.
Yes.
Was super cool.
Which I didn't even like.
Super subtle. I love that.
Yeah,
I love that a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Themes. Did you have any overall themes that you noticed in the book?
I mean, we kind of talked about the whole love thing. I feel like that's been a theme for a while now.
Yeah. That definitely continued this book.
Yeah, but I feel like, let's see, other than that, I mean, I feel like one of the biggest things was Harry having to come to terms with the whole Draco and like Snape sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know if it's a theme. Hold on. I need to think about it a little bit, actually. kind of forgot what train of thought I was going. I literally had a theme, but I just totally forgot.
What did you think about the whole Harry is the same or different than Voldemort now that we've seen young Tom Riddle? Because I thought one thing that I kind of noticed that was really interesting is that Tom got along with all the teachers, right? And Harry very much doesn't. And I think that's such a fascinating, like, commentary on people where you hear this a lot, where it's like, you're not going to be able to please everyone. And if you are, something's kind of up. Like, I don't know, like, not always. I don't mean to, like, suss everybody out, but you even see it with, like, you know, YouTube or different things like that, where it's like, look, you should be able to disagree, and you shouldn't be scared to disagree. And if you're not disagreeing, you're faking it, you're doing this for bad reasons or whatever. And I thought that was an interesting differentiation between Voldemort and Harry, where it's like Harry is this really emotional, really feeling, and not in a bad way, person. And so he'll get angry, and he'll get mad at Dumbledore, and he'll do these things. But because of that, their bond is ultimately stronger. He's ultimately closer to McGonagall and closer to Dumbledore and closer to Lupin, whereas, you know, Tom Riddle can kind of fake his emotions and never disagree with anybody, but ultimately that care is not there. It's a superficial relationship.
That's cool. I didn't even think of that.
And I mean, that goes into the love and lack of, right? Because Voldemort quite literally can't love. And then obviously Harry, that is what Harry was protected by and exists because, well, I guess exists because of too. I walked into that one. No, but like, you know what I mean. I just thought that was like the biggest thing that I kind of noticed.
No, that is
cool. I thought
cool.
was really interesting and kind of powerful.
That is cool because it is like, you know, where Voldemort kind of, well, Tom was able to like manipulate people and act like he was this certain person. Harry is way more, even though he isn't as like, he isn't able to like pick up on the subtle things and, you know, squeeze his way through certain things. He is way more like his emotions are on the surface, which makes him more honest and like trustworthy. Yeah. Whereas Tom Riddle, even though on the surface everyone kind of like likes him, he is like below the surface this like cunning sort of kid.
Yeah. So I thought that was really cool. But yeah, I think that's it. There's a lot going on, and like I said, we're gonna do a live stream for sure at the end of this, maybe even before the final part of Deathly Hallows 2, because I know you guys have been talking about like things that we've missed or whatever, and it's just like, dude, there's so much going through our heads during these videos, and I know there's tons of stuff that you want to ask us about, so we're gonna do 1 or maybe 2 more live streams around the book so that you guys can come and talk, and we can do a little bit longer form of a talk and different things like that. But yeah, thanks for joining us. Thank you for reading along with us if you have been, and thank you for supporting us, all of you guys, patrons, subscribers. You guys are awesome. So thank you so much. We're 1 book away. We're going to do Deathly Hallows in 2 parts. I know I talked about maybe doing it in 4. We're going to do it in 2 parts. So part 1 of Deathly Hallows is up on Patreon right now for early access. If you guys want to go check that out and kind of help us out a little bit on the channel. And yeah, thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching. And we will see you all in the next video.